This is Henry VIII. This is too, although you will find plenty of people on the internet willing to argue about it. Henry VIII's reputation as a larger-than-life monarch, who ruled England with an iron fist for nearly 4 decades, has been cemented into the popular consciousness alongside images of him as an obese, middle-aged, bearded man. Although, logically, the average person will likely admit that Henry VIII couldn't have been fat and 40 for his entire life. Many people today have a fixed image in their minds of how Henry VIII looked. Overweight, in elaborate clothing, with a bushy beard and a fierce expression. This image is largely informed by popular culture, like movies, plays, and television shows that have portrayed Henry VIII in this way. But what happens when we encounter earlier portraits of the king? From a time when he was young and athletic, with a slim build and a smooth jaw. Images of him that do not meet popular expectations often meet instead with resistance, and sometimes indignation. For example, I recently published a short about a hidden portrait of Henry VIII, which was discovered beneath another portrait of him, dated to 1519. And the comments, while sparse, were a bit negative. One viewer even confidently proclaimed, "The portrait underneath is the 7th Henry." Surely, the entity who made this video knows who the portrait underneath is. Absolutely. It's Henry VIII. But you don't have to take my word for it. The identification came from an article about the discovery of the portrait, which I will link below. Charlotte Boland, the National Portrait Gallery's senior curator of its 16th century collection, was quoted as saying, "You can see the more youthful image of Henry VIII beneath the surface. This is an evolution of a portrait over time, in a way that is really intriguing." Both the visible portrait and the hidden, earlier version beneath have been credited to Maynard Wooick, an artist who served as court painter to both Henry VII and Henry VIII. This provides an excellent opportunity for comparison, as we actually have a portrait of Henry VII painted by the same artist, in similar clothes and almost the same pose, which we can use to compare to the hidden painting. This painting of Henry VII is believed to have been painted in 1505, when the king was about 48 years old. The hidden portrait is dated to about 1509, when Henry VIII would have been just 18. Although the style of the cap and hair is quite similar, when placed side by side it is obvious that the shape of the face is completely different from one portrait to the other. Henry VII had sharp features, with a prominent nose, high cheekbones, and a pointed chin. His son, Henry VIII, had instead a longer nose, a squarer chin, and lips that were nearly pursed, giving him a more robust appearance than his father. Although details of the hidden portrait are a bit difficult to make out, it seems clear due to the shape of the face that this is a depiction of the younger Henry. The resemblance is especially notable when it is placed beside other portraits of him that have been positively identified. So, why then, would someone be so certain it was a portrait of Henry VII? A phenomenon known as the Tiffany Problem holds some of the answers. The term, coined by fantasy author Joe Walton, refers to a situation in which a work of historical fiction, or non-fiction for that matter, is well researched and accurate, but readers reject it because it does not fit their preconceived ideas of how the past should look. For example, even though Tiffany is a name with well-documented medieval roots, used as early as the 12th century, its use in a medieval-themed film is likely to leave some members of the audience scratching their heads, wondering why such an obvious mistake was included. In order to avoid these types of reactions, writers tend to choose names that seem medieval, instead of names that may be accurate, if they think it will confuse their readers. Unfortunately, when authors and filmmakers feel the need to remove or change historically accurate elements, in order to appease modern perceptions, they are only reinforcing this cycle, making it even more difficult for accurate depictions to find acceptance. In the case of Henry VIII, the most iconic images of the king are from late in his reign, complete with a beard and large ornate clothing, hung carefully on his massive frame to reinforce the appearance of a ruler at the height of his power. Most videos and articles about him will use these images when speaking of him, because they are immediately recognizable to audiences as Henry VIII. However, sometimes it is appropriate to use early portraits that do not match the popular image of the king, even though it can be difficult for modern viewers to reconcile the slim and athletic young king with the overweight and imposing figure we have come to expect. For instance, while presenting a biography, like this biography here, of Henry VIII, matching portraits with the corresponding period of his life can greatly enhance the viewer's understanding of the historical context in which certain events took place. The Henry VIII who initially ascended to the throne and married Catherine of Aragon wasn't the hefty, middle-aged figure we often picture. Instead, he was a slim, 17-year-old, clean-shaven youth. This version of Henry was deeply in love with his wife and shared in her profound grief as they endured the loss of numerous children. It was only later, after decades of disappointment, that their relationship soured. Deviating from the expected script can backfire, though. More than one comment on the biography implied that this was a portrait of Henry's older brother, Arthur. One viewer even asked in confusion, "Why did you keep showing a pic of Arthur when talking about Catherine and Henry's marriage?" Of course, the portrait in question is not a picture of Arthur Tudor, who died 7 years before this portrait was painted. It's a portrait of Henry VIII, dated to 1509, when he first took the throne at 17 years old. It's not as though it's an obscure portrait, either. It's literally the second image of him in his Wikipedia article. So while the Tiffany problem may cause some viewers to reject early portraits of Henry VIII, it is important to remember that these images are just as valuable and informative as the later ones. By examining the full range of portraits of Henry VIII, we can gain a deeper understanding of the man behind the myth and the complex realities of Tudor life. As tempting as it may be to reduce Henry VIII to a two-dimensional caricature, it is important to remember that he was complex and multifaceted, undergoing growth and change over the course of both his life and his lengthy, influential reign. So next time you come across a historical representation that surprises you, take a moment to appreciate it. Let it add another layer to your understanding of the past, and use it as a reminder of the importance of challenging your preconceptions and embracing the messy reality of history. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel so that you won't miss a thing. There's more fascinating content coming your way all the time. Thank you.